Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Eric here, Florida High Performance. Behind me, Bad Pumpkin ZL1. As you know, episode 1, we basically tested bolt-ons, intake, headers, exhaust, tuning, things like that. We picked up really good horsepower and torque. I was very, very impressed with this car. Making about 10 pounds of boost on the stock pulley configuration, stock supercharger. Let's fast forward now. Episode 2 is gonna mainly revolve around supercharger upgrades, adding boost, messing with some different fuels. The original purpose of episode 2 was to test the stock supercharger with some different pulley combinations, and then a Jokerz Performance ported supercharger with the same pulleys. Unfortunately, while we were filming, we lost all of the data. Our dyno software updated itself, and we lost all of the dyno graphs and all of the information that we had to show you guys, the step-by-step gains. So that changes some things in this episode. So again, full disclaimer before you start watching this episode, we originally set out to test bolt-ons, stock pulley or stock supercharger with upper-lower pulley, ported supercharger, upper-lower pulley. I'm still gonna show you a few things. I'm gonna show you in this video how we change the upper pulley on an LT4 supercharger. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the lower pulley we use. But ultimately what you're gonna see in this video is what we made with bolt-ons in this car, which we'll talk about briefly, and then what our results were with the Jokerz ported supercharger, larger throttle body, and different pulleys. Now I will tell you that the horsepower and torque gain is insane, and I will also tell you at the end of this video is a little bit of a bonus. Everything right now is on 93 octane, but we will be adding some MS109, a little bit of race gas and Bad Pumpkin. We're actually getting ready to do that now. So this video is gonna be pretty cool. Again, it's gonna show where we were with the bolt-ons, where we got with the ported supercharger, throttle body, and different pulley configurations, how much boost we gained, and then at the end, make things a little spicy, what this thing makes on race gas. So sit back, I hope you enjoy this video. It's gonna be very informative. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. All right guys, so we've done our baseline test. The results were pretty damn close, if not almost exact to what they were with the bolt-ons. So we're gonna get into removing the superchargers. This is the factory supercharger. It's got a factory upper pulley on it. It's a pretty easy procedure. Something you could definitely do yourself. I'm gonna time-lapse this video, but you're basically gonna take the lid off, gotta disconnect a whole bunch of stuff to it. You will lose a little bit of coolant from the heat exchanger. That's okay. I usually block these lines off and then I'll cap these to limit the amount of coolant that I lose. But other than that, take the lid off, take the intake off, start taking everything off the blower itself, unbolt it from the cylinder heads, and it comes off. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with that and get the pulley swapped in the supercharger. All right guys, so it's as easy as that. Just a couple of notes. Cover those ports up, make sure nothing falls into the intake ports. That would be catastrophic. And a couple other things you may or may not know. This is where all your direct injection stuff is. So underneath this insulator are your injectors, fuel rails, high pressure fuel pumps back here. It's underneath there. So a lot of people don't realize that with direct injection, it's exactly that. The fuel injector is installed directly into the cylinder head and sprays fuel directly into the cylinder. And all of that stuff is located underneath either your intake manifold or in this case, the supercharger. So if you ever have to change injectors or a high pressure fuel pump or anything like that, you're gonna have to take that top off, that component off to get to those things. That's it, I'm gonna go ahead and start tearing the blower down and get the pulley on and get everything back together and get this on the dyno as quickly as we can. All right guys, so I've got the blower off Bad Pumpkin. I'm gonna go over this real quick. Most of you watching this video are probably already aware of everything I'm about to tell you, but This is the LT4 Supercharger. This is the factory blower. This is what comes on the car, okay? I capped these coolant passages off for the heat exchanger to avoid a massive mess in the engine bay. I'm still gonna have to take these off and still gonna have to drain pretty much all of the coolant that's in these bricks out. But if you guys clamp off your heat exchanger lines in the car and you grab these 3/4 hose ends or caps, when you go to disconnect those lines, you throw this cap on here real quick. I'm telling you, it's a few drops that come out, you put a rag underneath and it saves you a big mess. I've seen guys pull those hoses off and coolant just comes flying out and pours all over your engine bay for no reason. It's not really my style. I like to try to be as clean as we can and not get coolant all over the person's engine bay, the customer's engine bay, so especially my engine bay. So that's why I do these. I will be taking them off. Again, I'll be taking all this stuff off to drain everything, and ultimately what we're going to wind up doing here is pulling the snout off to gain access to the pulley to be able to pull that off, change a few things around, put it back on, and then get it back in the car. So I'm going to go ahead and start that process. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just follow the bouncing ball. This is bolted onto the housing, so we're going to unbolt this snout from the housing. All right, so I've torn it down. I've gotten all the bolts out. Don't forget there's a bolt underneath. All right, that actually goes from kind of the center of the blower out, as opposed to these that go from the out in. And there's also one inside of the snout that would be located, you know, in the inlet of the blower. So don't forget those bolts. A lot of people have questions about how do I get the snout off. It's really hard to get off. It is. It's glued on there pretty good. I take a dead blow hammer. You can get these at Harbor Freight, Home Depot, whatever. Okay, it's a non-marring hammer. In other words, it's not gonna destroy the aluminum. It's not gonna, you know, affect the metal in any way. It's non-marring. It's soft. Okay, but it does have a nice little hit to it. I use a dead blow hammer, and I actually hit the snout very gently from the back, from underneath. I tap it from the back side, and just with patience. It took me about 5-6 minutes of just nice, easy strikes on the bottom side of this blower, on the snout, and it just pops off. Okay, and once it pops, the whole thing will come off, and then from there you can just kind of gently work it off of the case. Nice and easy. You will lose some coolant. That's okay. Again, I've gotten out as much as I could. All right, you want to pull this thing out like so. That's it. We are home free. The snout is off. There's your coupler. All right. Now I can get to work on getting this pulley off and get the new one on, and we can proceed. You want to be real careful putting this back in. Watch these plastic nipples here on the PCV tank thing that's on the back of the water pump. Very easy to snap those off, so just take your time doing this. Again, there's no rush here. All right, so I've got the blower back on, spinning nice and smooth, torque the bolts down, 89 inch-pounds, good to go. One last piece, just for fun, I wanted to show you guys. What's the difference between the lid on the left and the lid on the right? Well, that's my OEM lid. And this is a Billet Supercharger lid from DSX. Really, really cool. Dave at DSX Tuning is able to kind of replicate the OEM look on an aftermarket billet lid that he machines at his shop. So you turn this over, you see it's full CNC billet, one piece, pretty cool. It does a better job than the stock lid of directing air into the engine and into the ports. Makes things a little bit more efficient. It removes the baffle here that keeps these things nice and quiet. I know everybody's always looking to make these things a little noisier, whine a little more. This will certainly help that as well. So performance gain, sound gain, it looks hella cool. It's kind of stealth in a way. If you want that OEM look with an aftermarket lid, this is how you do it. So this is the factory lid. We compare the two. You see it's kind of boring, kind of plain, no real direction for airflow, anything like that. And then it has this little plate here which actually insulates and kind of keeps the noise in the blower, whereas this does not have that provision. So pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and install that too. Thanks to Dave for putting this product out. It's really, really nice piece. And we're going to go ahead and put it on Bad Pumpkin. So I'm going to switch over these seals, put the new seals in here, and keep moving. All right, guys, so as you know, anytime you disconnect the heat exchanger system on these L24s or any supercharger system really with a heat exchanger where coolant is being utilized to cool the blower, you're now going to introduce a bunch of air to the system. Problem with these cars, if you introduce air to the system, the heat exchanger pump cavitates and will not turn on. It will not pump any fluid. So sure enough, when I fired up Bad Pumpkin, I double checked and I had no coolant flow. So we use the Kentmore GM bleeder tool here at Florida Performance. It's a pretty simple setup. Uses vacuum, to pull all the air out of the system. And then obviously we replace it with our mixture of coolant and water, distilled water. So I'm basically checking for vacuum leaks right now. I don't have any. I'm going to continue to draw some air out of the system, and once I feel confident that we've gotten all the air out, I will go ahead and replace it with coolant. So guys, if you're not doing this, you're only hurting your performance. Your manifold air temps and your intake air temps are going to be crazy, and it's not going to perform very well. So make sure you're doing this, or at least you take it to a shop who has these tools. This is a Jiffy Type quick disconnect. I bought this from Janity Racing. So big thanks to those guys for, supplying this fitting so I don't have to go find it myself. If you want more information on this quick disconnect fitting for this particular T in the ZL1, let me know. The Corvettes, I think, have a different style one. It's one that just pushes on with an O-ring. I also have that adapter as well. So, but that's it, guys. So go ahead and bleed this system and we will start doing some dyno pulls. All right, guys, so let's talk about the lower pulley, the harmonic balancer on the ZL1. There's a little bit of confusion sometimes when I talk to customers about uppers and lowers and how they work. So real quick, as you know, as I may have already mentioned in the video, we only picked up about 1.5 pounds of boost over stock with the 2.3 upper. I had two choices at the time. I could change the upper, I can go even smaller, or I could put a lower on the crank with a larger ring, larger pulley, and make more boost that way. And that's what I'm gonna opt to do. I'm not a fan of going too small in the uppers. I think it reduces belt wrap, and just not a fan of it. You also have to machine the supercharger itself to accommodate much smaller pulleys. The 2.3 is about as small as I'll go on the upper. If we need more boost, I'll go with this. This is an Innovators West harmonic balancer. It's all we use. It's part number 8410 on their website. It's gonna come with the hardware and the installation stuff, everything you need, instructions. Now what's cool about this compared to the stock is once you press this on, it's keyed, obviously, just like the stock one is. Right, we've got a 3/16 keyway. Once you press this on, then you can interchange these pulleys. Right, this is a 9.1, so this is 9.1 inches in diameter, right, which is going to be larger than your stock pulley. Okay, so by going larger, by overdriving the supercharger with this larger pulley, we're actually going to make more boost that way too. So when people talk about a lower pulley, this is what they're talking about. This is larger in diameter than stock. All right, these are interchangeable. So if let's say the 9.1 makes too much, I can go down to say an 8.6, or if it doesn't make enough, I can go up to either 9.5 or 10. You can even have these custom made depending on what you need. So this is what we use. This is the standard harmonic balancer and pulley setup. These pulleys are from Metco. This is a 9.1 again. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this on Bad Pumpkin. You can do this in the car. I'm not gonna do a how-to on that, but I did pull this out in the car. All right, I didn't have to pull anything. I have to pull a radiator or fans or anything. So it's relatively straightforward. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the Innovators West in, put the 9.1 on, change the belt, and we're gonna see what boost we make on the dyno. All right, guys, so I have here the stock LT4 supercharger off of Bad Pumpkin. Of course, it already has the 245 upper, which we installed previously. You saw that process. To the left of the stock supercharger is the ported supercharger from Jokerz Performance. Brett has hooked it up. He sent me one of their full tilt LT4 superchargers. Now what's great about this is it is a factory supercharger. It will go on the same as this one went on. It'll come off the same as that one came off. It'll accept the lid that I already had on there. Everything will plug into it. I need to obviously switch over a few things, but for the most part, this is the easiest way to get more horsepower out of a supercharger without going with an aftermarket blower, right? So Brett makes it easy. You go to his website, Jokerz Performance, check him out. You pick what kind of blower you have, whether it be a 2650 Magnuson or the LT4. He even does Hemi stuff. Really simple to choose the options and things that you want to do. And you send him your blower, or he could even provide a core if he has them. He does his thing and ships it back. So really, really good service. Very easy to deal with. He's been very helpful throughout this process. So I'm not going to get too technical into the actual porting itself, the inlet porting, the outlet porting. If you want more information on that, talk to Brett. He'll explain it to you, how it works, why porting a supercharger is beneficial, how it works, how it makes power. But what I do want to show you is some differences between the stock supercharger and the ported supercharger, just so you have an idea of what porting is and what we're talking about. Anytime you port something, the term porting, it basically means we're going to get more air into it, right? We're going to open it up. There's going to be machining involved, whether it be a blower or cylinder heads or anything like that. And at its essence, it's more air in, more air out, right? We're going to increase the efficiency of the supercharger, and we're going to make more horsepower and torque. So talk about porting a blower, that's what we're doing. So a couple things here. First thing you'll notice, 103 millimeter opening where the throttle body bolts. All right, and if you take a peek in there, you can see a lot of the machine work that's done. All right, so they really get in there with their CNC machines. They're removing material where it needs to be removed, and obviously taking full advantage of the porting itself and the airflow, and maximizing the efficiency of this LT4 supercharger. So they do that. They'll also press a hub on for you should you want to change the upper pulley. I've obviously had them do that because we will be changing the upper pulley. And they also change the coupler inside. They clean the bricks. They can rebuild the supercharger if it needs to be. So the service they provide is very, very complete. There's really nothing they can't do to this thing. And that ensures when it comes back that it's ready to bolt on. So pretty nice piece. I'm very excited to see how this does. Compare that to the stock supercharger, you'll notice this is not 103 millimeters, it's much smaller than that, and there's no machining of any sort inside. In fact, some of the casting in there is very rough. But bottom line, guys, more air in, right? Less air in. More efficient, less efficient. All right. I'm actually going to be sending this supercharger back to Brett to port for another project that we have going on. I'm going to swap over the 245 pulley to this hub. I'm going to be switching over a couple of other pieces and parts, some sensors and things like that, and be able to bolt this back in the car. Throttle body. Our friends at Katech supplied a 103 millimeter black anodized throttle body. It's awesome. It's our go-to. It's what we use. It's a beautiful part. All right, it's plug and play. All right, so the factory connector and the factory harness will plug right into that. And obviously, this will bolt to the front of our blower. Okay, I wouldn't spend the time and effort and money to port a supercharger and not run a 103. Can you imagine running a stock throttle body on that? I just wouldn't do it. So big shout out to the guys at Katech. They're really great to deal with. We've worked with them for years. They actually will refer their local customers here in Florida to us if they can't get up to Katech because they're further north than us. And anyway, they hooked this throttle body up and I really appreciate them doing that. We're gonna provide links in this video to Jokerz Performance as well as Katech. And of course, as always, if you have questions on these products, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to explain in great detail whatever it is that you'd need to know. But I'm gonna go ahead and start switching the pieces over from stock blower to the Jokerz full tilt blower. I'm gonna get the throttle body on there and we're gonna get back to tuning Bad Pumpkin. All right, guys, so we've wrapped up our testing and our tuning and our modifying of Bad Pumpkin, and we are now at the portion of this video where we talk about the results. I have my notes here in front of me. It's a lot of data. I'm gonna get through it as quickly as possible. I'm not here to bore anybody. You've already watched a lot in this video, I understand that, so I'm gonna get right to the point. All right, let's first talk about the modifications. Just to remind everybody of what we did to this thing, the brands that we use, the companies we work with, of course, because we appreciate their support. And without them helping us out, we wouldn't be able to do this kind of stuff. So Jokerz Performance, Brett, the owner, very, very helpful. He provided us with his full tilt porting service on our LT4 supercharger here. Really, really nice product. I work with Brett a lot on a lot of customers stuff, so thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And as you will see shortly, the ported supercharger did really, really well. Katech Performance. Katech's been great. I've been working with Katech for years. We use their throttle body on this. Roto-Fab, awesome intakes. It's pretty much the gold standard for Camaro intakes. It's what we have on this. Of course, this being the standard Roto-Fab intake, not the big gulp. We will be upgrading to a big gulp intake in time when we do heads cam and things like that. Thank you very much to everybody who's supported this build and who's supporting this build and providing the products. So let's get right into the performance. Let's get into the gains. Again, the baseline in this car was 594 real world horsepower and 642 real world torque. All right, so 594, 642 is what this car baselined at prior to me doing the work. It was pretty much spot on with what it was from episode 1, if you recall. That was right at 11 pounds of boost, 93 octane, and 21.5 degrees of timing is what we were running at that time. So very good place to start from. And then we got right into modifying. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we did lose some of the data when we went from bolt-ons to upper lower pulley in a stock blower. So I don't have the data here for that, but if I had to guess, stock blower, stock throttle body, 245 upper and a 9.1 lower with a stock blower, unported blower, probably was gonna be somewhere around 630 wheel, 640 wheel, 690 foot-pounds of torque, somewhere in there. The 245 upper and the 9.1 lower netted 14.5 pounds of boost. So that was kind of right where we wanted to be. Initially, we added a 2.3 upper, but we only picked up 1.5 pounds of boost. So it really wasn't worth doing anything on. That's when I decided to put the lower on there and get that 13, 14 pound mark, which is where we wanted to be. Ended up at 14.5 pounds. So I also might add that when we went to the 2.3 upper and the 9.1 lower, I was having some major belt slip issues. I just couldn't find the right size belt. It was just kind of those in-between sizes. At above 5,500 RPM was having some belt slip issues. So we wound up going back to the 245 upper, 9.1 lower, was able to find the perfect size Gates belt that provided the tension we needed up top at higher RPM, and we netted 14.5 pounds of boost. So let's talk about the ported supercharger. Ported blower, 103 throttle body from Katech, 245 upper, 9.1 lower, full bolt-ons, 93 octane. made 685 rear-wheel horsepower and 747 foot-pounds of torque. If you compare that to our baseline, that's a gain of 91 rear-wheel horsepower and 105 rear-wheel torque. That is very, very impressive horsepower. I attribute most of that to the ported supercharger. Of course, the other modifications support that airflow, but you can see it's a massive gain. Even over the stock blower with pulleys, it's a big gain, but from our baseline to what we got with the ported blower and everything, 685 rear-wheel horsepower, 747 foot-pounds of torque is a lot. What was really cool about it was when we added the ported supercharger, we actually picked up 2 pounds of boost. We went from 14.5 pounds to 16.5 pounds. So that's truly a testament to the airflow that these things can produce. That's how important it is to open these blowers up and really let them breathe. So again, very, very impressive horsepower gain. Still a 93 octane. At 16.5 pounds of boost, we're running right at 19 degrees of timing for you tuners out there. 19 degrees, we were happy with it. It was still relatively safe on 93, and we didn't have any detonation or issues like that, obviously. I read the plugs, they look good, so kept it right around 19 degrees, a little bit less than it was on bolt-ons. And yeah, so a gain of 91 rear-wheel horsepower and 105 rear-wheel torque. Again, very, very impressive. Was very, very happy with that. Now, let's talk about race gas. So I was very happy with the gains, as I said. I had some MS109 laying around. I talked to Matt at MS Tuning about throwing some race gas in Bad Pumpkin. He said, man, let's do it. Look, bottom line, race gas, whether it's E85 or race gas out of a pail, in this case, VP MS109, if we can get that octane up, we can raise the octane in the cylinder, we can run more timing and be a lot more controlled burn, and we can get a lot more horsepower from it. So we wound up running the 93 out of this thing. We added 10 gallons of MS109, and we went back to the rollers and made some pulls. Very, very impressed with the gains on MS109. We were able to run 27 degrees of timing, up from 19 on 93. So 27 degrees of max timing on these pulls. Total horsepower was 721 rear-wheel horsepower, 771 foot-pounds of torque. That is a 36 horsepower gain and a 24 rear-wheel torque gain over 93, everything else being the same, 16.5 pounds of boost. We basically just took 93 out, put race gas in, picked up almost 40 horsepower and almost 25 foot-pounds of torque at the wheels. Now let's talk about race gas for a second. Yes, it's very expensive. Yes, MS109 is nearly $20 a gallon, maybe even more. I'm certainly not telling the average person with one of these vehicles or any vehicle to go put $20, $23, $25 a gallon fuel in their tank and drive the car around every day. That was not the purpose of this. I was just showing what kind of advantage, what kind of gain you can get by putting race gas in. But think about it like this. A lot of guys go E85, right? E85 we can get from the pump. Here in South Florida, it's anywhere from $3 to $4 a gallon right now. E85 kind of does the same thing, right? It gets us higher octane. It allows us to run more timing, make more horsepower. The problem with E85 is it requires a massive amount of fuel system upgrades. Larger injectors, high pressure fuel pump, a low side, even maybe a fuel system, port injection. Depending on how much power you want to make, you have to do a lot of changes to these things and make a lot of changes and spend a lot of money to be able to even run E85, and that's the problem. So yes, E85 is cheaper, but the modifications to run it are not. In this particular case with MS109, I made 0 fuel system changes. Bad Pumpkin is on its stock in-tank fuel pump and stock direct injection high side, stock fuel pressure and stock injectors, or fuel pump and injectors. So the power we've made on what I would consider bolt-ons on race gas, having not had upgraded the fuel system and saved all that money, I'm actually very, very impressed with it. And I'm almost to the point now where I'm going to be able to switch between MS109 and 93 and probably not run E85 or any kind of ethanol-based fuel for quite a while. Matt and I were actually talking about running C16. C16 has 0% oxygenation in it or any kind of ethanol or anything like that in it, and being able to run a flex fuel sensor and actually being able to switch between C16 and 93 with our flex fuel sensor without having to change the actual tune file itself between fuel swaps, which is pretty cool. So might do that in a later episode and explain a little bit more of that detail. But nonetheless, again, going back to my notes, very, very impressed with the horsepower gains. We're going to put that graph up, like I said. Intake air temps, manifold air temps, 120, 130 degrees between pulls. So I wasn't having massive issues with crazy heat. When I took this thing out on the road, I would hit it, I'd be maybe 125 degrees. And then once I coasted and cooled down and just kind of cruised with the car, the intake air temps and the manifold air temps came right down. So no heat exchanger upgrades in this car, nothing like that. It's kind of what you see. Very, very, very impressed with the gains, as I said. So I hope you are too. I hope that this data kind of opens your eyes and maybe dispels some myths of what you can make on bolt-ons. No cam, no heads, pretty much was on pump gas, pump 93 the entire time we made this video up until the point where I added race gas. So I hope this answers questions, and if you've got a ZL1 1LE out there or any kind of LT4 powered vehicle, you can copy this. You can do this exact combination I did. You can drive it every day, whether it be on race gas, E85, pump gas, whatever the case is. And man, I have to tell you, this thing is a real ass kicker. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned some things. As I said, I always set out to teach and explain. We hope you learned some stuff. Bad Pumpkin's only gonna get faster and faster. Next round is gonna be heads and cam, maybe throw some E85 at it, we're gonna see. But until then, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. It's very important that we get subscriptions and more people following so that the channel can grow. All right, smash the like button, of course, and please comment below. Good, bad, ugly. I will answer your comments, whether they're dumb or not. I'm happy to answer any questions, provide any technical information I can. And of course, you're always welcome to call Florida High Performance, ask for Eric, and I'd be happy to explain things on the phone as well. So guys, thank you very much for checking it out. Bad Pumpkin, great job. Very excited. We'll see you next time. Thank you.